As we dive into the Gus Lamont case on the channel, it's clear this mystery is stacked with messy, unclear information from the start, conflicting statements, missing details, and a family dynamic that's anything but transparent. The key issue here is piecing together a complete timeline that makes sense, from the pre-disappearance isolation to the ongoing silence. One hard fact stands out: Gus might have vanished long before the reported date of September 27, 2025, suggesting the whole thing could be a staged event to cover something deeper. So, what if the disappearance was just the reveal of a plan already in motion? Who in the family knew, and why keep it hidden? Here is the complete timeline of the disappearance of Gus Lamont. Before the disappearance. The case is believed to have started long before the reported date. Long before Gus Lamont vanished from that remote sheep station in South Australia's outback. The Murray Lamont family had roots tangled in isolation, control, and unspoken tensions that shaped their world. The story traces back to the early days of the Oak Park Station, a vast 60,000-hectare property about 40 kilometers south of Yunta, where generations of the Murray family built a life far from prying eyes. This homestead, often described as an island unto itself, operated under a strict patriarchal dynamic, where men held iron-fisted authority, dictating not just daily operations but also the secrets kept within its boundaries. Vincent Murray, Shannon's father, and a decorated World War II hero who managed the ranch for decades, embodied this authoritative structure. He was the kind of figure who ensured everyone knew their place, enforcing a culture where personal truths stayed buried until circumstances allowed otherwise. Josie Murray, born as Robert, lived much of her life under this regime, concealing her true identity for years in an environment where deviation from norms could upend the family order. By 2015, the landscape shifted when Vincent passed away, opening a window for change. Josie transitioned from Robert to Josie shortly after, a move locals later noted as happening once the coast was clear. Without the patriarch's oversight, Josie then appeared as a fiery houseowner, often described in reports as aggressive and unyielding, traits that would later manifest in interactions that revealed her protective, if confrontational, stance over family matters. Questions arose about inheritance in this period. Would Vincent have left the estate to Josie if the transition had occurred earlier, or would it have gone directly to Shannon? As it stood, Shannon held technical ownership of the property, but Josie effectively ruled the roost, wearing the pants in daily decisions and maintaining the homestead's operations with a firm hand. The family led largely unremarkable lives on the surface, tending sheep in the endless red dust. But beneath it simmered an authoritative vibe where rules were set by those in charge, and outsiders rarely penetrated the seclusion dictated by the outback's geography. Around 2021, Gus Lamont entered this war. Lamont and Jessica Murray, Josie's daughter with Shannon. Gus, a shy but curious child with blonde curly hair, was adventurous and a good walker from an early age, confident on his feet yet never known to stray from the property alone before his disappearance. His birth marked the start of escalating generational conflicts, as locals whispered about tensions bubbling up within the Murray Lamont clan. Josie became a central figure in these rifts, her name repeatedly surfacing in accounts of family discord. The homestead's remote location amplified this isolation. Families like theirs could live secluded lives, rarely venturing into nearby towns like Yunta, which only had about 60 residents. This setup reinforced the sense of the property as a law unto itself, where internal matters stayed internal, and control extended to how the children were raised. Gus shared the home with his mother Jessica, described as quiet, shy, highly intelligent, and a high achiever, who balanced her introverted nature with the demands of outback life. Jessica and Joshua remained a couple, but their relationship evolved into a complex commuter arrangement, with Joshua often on the road as a musician before settling into handyman work. We see the aggression and control intensify around 2023-2024. Following the birth of Gus's younger brother, Ronnie, who was about 1 year old at the time of the incident. Joshua had spent extended periods at Oak Park Station, trying to build a life there with Jessica and the boys, but clashes with Josie forced him out roughly 2 years prior. Friends recounted how Joshua, portrayed as angry, heartbroken, outspoken, and fiery, was effectively banned from the homestead due to personality conflicts that may have stemmed from Gus's arrival or broader family power struggles. Joshua relocated to Bellely North, a 2-hour drive away, where he renovated a house in hopes of reuniting his family under one roof. This separation painted Joshua as the only man in the equation treated like a pariah, even as he worried about his son's safety in the outback under Josie's influence. Reports mentioned the family's mental health problems, with extended family members and caretakers feeling sorry for the children and often giving them whatever they wanted as compensation. These family conflicts and issues fostered an unstable setting for the children, far from safe in the conventional sense. From Gus's birth in 2021 onward, the generational rifts, fueled by Josie's dominant role, left Gus and Ronnie in a homestead where tensions could erupt without external buffers. Joshua's banishment meant the boys grew up without their father's daily presence, amplifying concerns about their well-being in such a remote spot. The outback's harsh terrain added layers of risky. Snakes were a protected species in South Australia, yet stories circulated about using inappropriate tools like pump-action shotguns to handle them, highlighting a disregard for rules that exemplified the family's self-governing mindset. Extended family felt bad for the kids, indicating internal recognition of the problems, but this never translated to outside help. No welfare checks or interventions from child protection organizations like South Australia's Department for Child Protection occurred before the case, despite the reported mental health issues and the grandparents effectively holding full custody in practice. This lack of oversight reflected broader challenges for children in remote or marginalized areas, where community eyes were scarce and families like the Murrays could operate without scrutiny. Suspicions that Gus went missing before the official report add another layer to this pre-incident timeline. In March 2025, Gus attended a trial day at a local nursery school, marked on Joshua's calendar as term starts, signaling plans for him to begin full-time in January 2026. This was the last confirmed sighting Gus by anyone outside his immediate family, captured in the police photo of him in a gray and blue Peppa Pig t-shirt. Gus appeared confident and mobile, but the schooling never materialized, hinting at disrupted plans amid the family's seclusion. From March 2025 to September 27, 2025, Gus barely left the homestead over those 6 months, with only family members, who later reported him missing, claiming to have seen him alive during that period. Journalists checked nearly every property in Uintah, where residents knew Jessica had 2 children, but none recalled spotting Gus since he was a baby. Similar accounts came from Belleley North and Jamestown, where Joshua frequented pubs. No one had seen Gus since 2024. The family provided just one old photo for the search, complicating efforts and drawing parallels to cases like Madeleine McCann, where limited visuals hindered identification. This isolation fueled doubts about what Gus endured or how he was treated in those months. No specific evidence points to abuse, but the family's mental health struggles could have influenced his experiences. Extended relatives compensated by spoiling the children, suggesting an awareness of underlying hardships. Gus might have been removed by someone, or suffered an accident, like being struck by a vehicle or sheep, as rams in outback flocks can be dangerous if not handled carefully. The absence of footprints or items post-disappearance supports theories of an earlier vanishing, perhaps explaining the delayed report on September 27, coinciding with the AFL Grand Final to minimize attention. Private investigators noted a concerning lack of evidence that Gus ever walked away from the homestead, implying the official timeline might not hold. The disappearance. The day officially marked as the start of the case is September 27, 2025, when the disappearance was reported. But first, let's address this question. What would you do if your child went missing? On that Saturday, Gus Lamont, the 4-year-old boy with blonde curly hair, was last seen around 5:00 p.m., playing on a mound of dirt just outside the homestead at Oak Park Station. This remote sheep station sits about 40 kilometers south of Uintah in South Australia's outback, a vast and rugged property where the family lived in relative isolation. Shannon Murray, Gus's grandmother, spotted him there while she was inside tending to his 1-year-old brother, Ronnie. By 5:30 p.m., when Shannon stepped out to call Gus in for dinner, he was nowhere to be found. The boy had vanished within that narrow 30-minute window. Gus was dressed in a gray t-shirt, jeans, a blue Jackaboy hat, and rubber boots, items that should have made him somewhat visible in the fading light. The family began their own search right after discovering he was gone, combing the immediate area for 3 hours, which included at least after sunset around 6:15 p.m., pushing into full darkness. During this initial effort, Gus didn't respond to any calls or shouts, which added to the urgency as night fell. They finally contacted the police that evening, triggering the official response. Notably, September 27 coincided with the AFL Grand Final, a major sports event across Australia that might have drawn public attention elsewhere, potentially delaying widespread awareness of the missing child. Shannon Murray provided key details in her account, stating she had been inside the homestead the whole time, focused on caring for Ronnie while Gus played outside on the dirt mound. She described seeing him clearly at 5:00 p.m., engaged in his play, but when she returned to summon him for the evening meal at 5:30 p.m., there was no sign of him. Shannon joined the family's preliminary search efforts immediately after, helping to scan the property in those crucial early hours before authorities arrived. Josie Murray, Gus's other grandmother, explained that she had been away from the homestead at the time of the disappearance, about 10 kilometers out on the station with Jessica, searching for lost sheep, a routine task on the expansive ranch. Josie returned once alerted and participated in the family's search, contributing to the 3-hour sweep that extended into the night. Jessica Murray, Gus's mother, corroborated this, confirming she was with Josie handling the sheep far from the main house when Gus went missing. Jessica, who had left Gus under Shannon's watch, also took part in the initial hunt upon her return, calling out for her son alongside the others. Joshua Lamont, Gus's father, was not at the homestead that day. He was 2 hours away by car in Baffled North, working on renovating a house as part of plans to eventually reunite the family. He learned of the disappearance only hours later, informed directly by the police, rather than through a call from Jessica or the grandparents. Joshua did not participate in the family's initial search, as he was too far removed from the scene when the events unfolded. Descriptions of Gus from family statements painted him as an adventurous child and a good walker for his age, capable of moving around confidently. But they emphasized he had never previously left the property alone, which made his sudden absence all the more puzzling. We pieced together these accounts from various reports, noting how the family statements aligned on the basics: Gus's last known activity on the dirt mound, the quick realization at dinner time, and the self-initiated search before involving law enforcement. Shannon's role, as the primary caregiver at the homestead that afternoon, placed her as the last person to see Gus, while Josie and Jessica's absence for sheep tending explained their delayed involvement in the immediate response. The 3-hour delay in reporting, spent searching in diminishing light, reflects the Outback's challenges, where families often handle initial crises independently due to the remote location. Gus's lack of response to calls during this period stood out, as a child his age might typically answer if nearby, but the vast terrain could have muffled sounds. Details on Gus's clothing, gray t-shirt, jeans, blue jacket, cowboy hat, and rubber boots, were consistently relayed in statements, helping to form the basis for any potential sightings. The AFL Grand Final's timing on that day added a layer of context, as millions tuned into the event, possibly overshadowing early news of a missing boy in a rural area. Joshua's separation from the scene highlighted ongoing family dynamics, with his renovation work in Baffled North keeping him detached until authorities looped him in. Shannon reiterated in her account that the homestead was quiet that afternoon, with Ronnie requiring her attention indoors, leaving Gus to his outdoor play unsupervised for that brief period. Josie and Jessica described their sheep searching routine as standard, involving checking fences and tracking strays across the station's 60,000 hectares, which kept them occupied until word of Gus's absence reached them. Upon returning, they joined Shannon in methodically covering ground near the dirt mound and beyond, using whatever light remained before darkness fully set in. As we dig deeper into the events of that day, several inconsistencies in the family statements stand out, raising questions about the timeline and actions taken. The delay in reporting Gus missing to the police is one key point. In typical missing child cases, families often alert police almost immediately to maximize daylight and bring in professional resources like search dogs or helicopters right away, rather than risking evidence loss in the night. Here, that 3-hour gap feels unusual, especially on a vast property where a young child could wander far quickly. If it were your situation, you might wonder why not call emergency services sooner while continuing the search, ensuring experts could join before conditions worsened. Another discrepancy lies in the lack of an immediate public appeal for help. Unlike many missing child investigations where families reach out to neighbors, media, or community groups to spread the word and gather volunteers, the Murrays remained silent at first, handling everything internally without broader calls for assistance on that day. In standard cases, such as those involving lost toddlers in rural areas, parents often mobilize locals right away through phone trees or social alerts to cover more ground fast. If you were in their shoes, you'd likely grab your phone to notify nearby stations or farms, expanding the search radius beyond just family members, especially knowing the outback's dangers like dehydration or wildlife. The reported location of Gus also presents conflicts. The family's playing on a fresh mound of dirt outside the homestead at 5:00 p.m., yet no disturbances, footprints, or scents were noted there later, despite it being the last known spot. In usual missing persons scenarios with children, if a kid was actively playing in a specific area like dirt or sand, investigators typically find some trace, such as scuff marks, dropped items, or even toy impressions to confirm activity. The absence here makes the dirt mound story seem convenient, as any existing marks on fresh soil could be attributed to anything, not necessarily Gus. Compared to verified cases where play areas yield clear evidence, this lack prompts scrutiny. Words from private investigator Ken Gamble echo this, noting a complete void of signs that Gus was even there after vanishing. Gus's failure to respond to calls during the family's 3-hour search adds another layer of inconsistency. For a 4-year-old described as adventurous but familiar with the property, not answering shouts in those initial hours is odd, as young children in typical lost in the wilderness situations often reply if they're within earshot, scared but still audible. Reports from similar outback disappearances show kids responding to voices, leading to quicker recoveries, yet here, silence prevailed even as the group called out into the dusk. This detail clashes with the idea of a simple wander-off, where a responsive child might have been located sooner. The fact that Joshua Lamont wasn't notified immediately by Jessica or the grandparents is striking too. His wife didn't call him directly, and he only learned from police hours later while in Bellely North. In most family-centered missing cases, all relatives get alerted right away to join efforts or provide insights, like recent behaviors or favorite hiding spots. This omission feels out of step, as standard protocol in such emergencies involves looping in parents instantly, regardless of distance. If you found yourself in this role, you'd probably dial the father first thing, enlisting his help to cover angles the on-site group might miss. That dirt mound where Gus was last seen potentially mask other details, since impressions on fresh earth aren't uniquely traceable to Gus. In comparable investigations, specific witness claims like this get cross-checked early with forensics, often revealing mismatches if the story doesn't hold. Here, without verified traces, it invites doubt, much like Gamble's assessment of zero evidence overall. We have to ask, if you were the Lamont family on that day, would you delay reporting for hours in the dark, skip public pleas, or not alert the father right away? Would you accept a play area with no signs of play, or a child's silence without pushing for more resources faster? These points make us pause, piecing together what might not add up. Shifting to the evidence suggesting a shocking possibility that Gus wasn't at the homestead as testimony from the Lamont family, the complete lack of footprints, clothing, his hat, or any personal items linked directly to him on the property after 5:30 p.m., stands out prominently. Despite the family's search and later police efforts, nothing tangible turned up near the dirt mound or immediate area, which contradicts the idea of a boy actively playing there moments before vanishing. Volunteers involved early on reported zero evidence that Gus was even present on the station after that time, a void that private investigator Ken Gamble highlighted as unusual for a wander scenario. One solitary footprint in red dirt near a dam about 600 meters away was believed to match Gus's boots, but it wasn't definitively confirmed, and the presence of sheep droppings around it suggested he might have been accustomed to sheep areas, possibly driven there rather than staying home. This isolated mark, amid animal waste, hints at a different location altogether, not aligning with the homestead play story. Gamble reinforced this by pointing to the overall lack of footprints, indicating Gus probably didn't walk away from the house on his own. If Gus had been playing on the dirt mound at 5:00 p.m., as claimed, why were there no traces of disturbance, scuffs, or even a scent trail detectable there? Fresh dirt like that should hold impressions from a child's activity, yet nothing surfaced, raising the possibility that any marks present weren't from him at all. This gap in physical evidence fuels questions about his actual whereabouts that afternoon. Gus's apparent familiarity with sheep zones, inferred from the footprint surrounded by droppings, clashes with the account of him being left at home while Josie and Jessica were out tending flocks 10 kilometers away. If he was used to those areas, as the evidence implies, it suggests he could have been transported, or present there, instead of isolated at the homestead with Shannon and Ronnie. These details collectively paint a picture where the homestead might not have been the true starting point, with the evidentiary void speaking volumes about what didn't happen there. The search. The search phase after September 27 reveals even more strange things about this case. Not only from the Lamont family, but also from the investigators and searchers themselves. What happened to them? Right after Gus vanished that evening, the response kicked off with a massive operation spanning from September 27 to around October 7 or 8, 2025, covering about 47,000 hectares of rugged outback terrain. This involved South Australian Police, State Emergency Service volunteers, infrared and thermal drones, helicopters, Aboriginal trackers, 48 members of the Australian Defence Force, trail bike and ATV teams, search dogs, and local community members. Authorities called it one of the largest and most intensive searches in SA police history, but despite all that manpower and tech, no direct traces turned up, no footprints definitively linked to Gus, no clothing, no hat. Some footprints were spotted, but they couldn't be connected to the boy, leaving everyone scratching their heads as the days dragged on without a single solid lead. On September 30, just 3 days in, police broke the grim news to the family that Gus might not have survived. Factoring in his young age, the time elapsed, and the harsh outback conditions that could overwhelm a 4-year-old quickly. Then, on October 6, they ramped things up again after spotting a footprint near a dam to the west of the property, hoping it might point somewhere, but it didn't lead to anything conclusive. By October 7, the ground search scaled back and got suspended, with the case handed over to the Missing Persons Investigation section of SA Police for longer-term handling. The very next day, October 8, they officially halted the on-foot efforts and shifted it to the Major Crime Investigation Branch, which hinted at a possible pivot toward foul play rather than just a kid who wandered off. Josie Murray spoke to the media on October 9, saying the family was still out there searching on their own even after the police pulled back, showing they weren't ready to give up despite the official slowdown. We kept tracking the developments as they unfolded, and on October 13, police announced they'd resume efforts the following day. Sure enough, October 14 saw the start of a second search round, zeroing in on the homestead and fresh areas with ADF support thrown in for good measure. Sometime in October, without a specific date pinned down in reports, they drained 3.2 million liters from a dam 600 meters from where Gus was last seen. But that turned up empty too. The case stayed with the Missing Persons Unit amid growing national and international media attention that hammered home the sheer mystery of it all. By October 16, the third search was winding down, without any new clues. October 30 marked the end of that third push, with police prepping to drain the dam, but finding nothing significant. And then on October 31, they resumed yet again, ruling out a key theory according to GB News reports. Moving into November, on the 5th, Commissioner Grant Stevens indicated a potential fourth search at the isolated property. An online post on November 7 noted Gus was still missing, sending hearts to the family in a show of ongoing public sympathy. Experts shared thoughts on the case by November 12. As of November 20, Gus remained missing after 1 month and 22 days, with the investigation transferred to long-term missing persons status. 2 reviews of the search efforts spotted ways to enhance things but offered no criticism, and officials stressed the search was far from over, echoed in various sources and podcasts. Recent updates, as of November 21, confirm no breakthroughs, with a new podcast episode delving into fresh details of the mystery, and private investigator Ken Gamble reiterating his views from the day before on the lack of evidence. Amid this drawn-out process, behaviors from the family side started showing signs of resistance and obstruction that only added to the oddities. On October 30, exactly 1 month after the disappearance, Josie Murray confronted a Daily Mail reporter and photographer who approached the homestead to ask about the search efforts. She emerged clutching a pump-action shotgun in one hand and a bullet case in the other, demanding, "Who are you?" before yelling, "Get out. You are trespassing, get out, get out." And, "Shut your face and get out." Once they identified themselves, Shannon Murray tried to intervene, assuring Josie she had it under control, but the encounter came across as highly aggressive, happening just hours before police announced another search resumption. No charges were filed in the aftermath. The family also turned down community offers of help, with Josie stating outright, "You can't help. We are still dealing with this," and refusing interviews, while only offering emotional explanations that they were still looking on their own. Then there's the story Josie told about brandishing a shotgun to shoot a snake on the porch, which raised eyebrows because snakes are protected in South Australia, making it illegal, and a pump-action shotgun isn't suitable for Queens reptile dispatch due to ricochet risks. It painted the picture of a family operating as a law unto themselves. Joshua Lamont's ban from the homestead stemmed from a personality clash with Josie, and he wasn't even notified right away about the disappearance, learning from police hours later, which seemed like another layer of internal barriers. The silence and suspicious absences from family members further clouded things as the searches progressed. Shannon Murray, as Gus's grandmother, and the last person to see him alive, holds a central role in the timeline we've pieced together. She reported spotting Gus at 5:00 p.m. on September 27, 2025, playing on that dirt mound outside the homestead while she stayed inside caring for his little brother Ronnie. By 5:30 p.m., when she called him in for dinner, he was gone, kicking off the family's initial search. But after that early statement to police, Shannon vanished from any public narrative, no additional details shared, no appeals for help, no interviews granted. We expected more from her as the key witness, perhaps extra insights into Gus's behavior that day, any odd sounds around the property, or mentions of visitors who might have passed through. Instead, silence. Her only notable appearance came during the October 30, 2025, confrontation when Josie brandished a shotgun at Daily Mail reporters inquiring about the search. Shannon stepped in, assuring she had it under control, but offered no further comments on the case. Living on the station with Josie, and technically the property's owner, her complete withdrawal raises flags. Speculations swirl that Shannon might be under Josie's control or holding back knowledge. Her absence complicates things, especially once the case shifted to the Major Crime Investigation Branch, where deeper witness input could crack open new leads. Jessica Murray, Gus's mother, is the most puzzling disappearance within this already mysterious case. As the parent of both Gus and one-year-old Ronnie, she should have been at the forefront, making tearful camera appeals, joining search parties, or at least issuing personal statements to rally public support. Yet, since Gus vanished, Jessica has dropped off the map entirely, with no sightings in the area and her whereabouts remaining unclear. Described in reports as quiet, shy, highly intelligent, and a high achiever, she was out tending sheep 10 kilometers from the homestead with Josie on the day it happened, leaving Gus under Shannon's watch. We find this striking, given how mothers in similar cases often become the face of the search, begging for tips or sharing memories to humanize the story. Assumptions about her location vary. She might be hunkered down on the property or elsewhere, grappling with grief or trauma, or perhaps staying with extended family in Belleley North to escape the spotlight, fitting her shy nature. But unconfirmed reports and media like Daily Mail fuel darker speculations. Maybe she's avoiding scrutiny because she knows more about the outcome, like an accident or cover-up, making her reluctant to push the investigation forward. If Jessica suspected Gus was no longer alive or was hiding something, her withdrawal could explain the lack of urgency. It's reminiscent of cases where parents go quiet due to guilt or hidden knowledge, though nothing's proven here. Joshua Lamont, the father, adds another layer to the family's enigmatic quiet. He wasn't notified right away on September 27, 2025, learning from police hours later while in Belleley North, 2 hours away. Portrayed as angry, heartbroken, outspoken, and fiery, he's been under immense strain, with friends checking on his mental health regularly. From the investigation side, there's a pattern of limited public disclosure and what looks like information withholding that keeps the full picture hazy. Updates have been sparse. The latest from police back on October 7 involved scaling back the search and transferring to missing persons for long-term management, with no mention of foul play, and a continued focus on the wandered-off theory. Commissioner Stevens emphasized, there is nothing to suggest foul play, and that it's far from over. The information released sticks to safeground exhaustive searches conducted. No criticism from the two reviews, which only identified opportunities to enhance efforts, ruling out the footprint as relevant, and no details on any criminal investigation directions. They've refuted misinformation, like confirming certain images circulating were fake and not factual in a fact check on October 14, with AAPE also debunking falsehoods. Media coverage has gripped the nation, but police avoid commenting on foul play theories. Deputy Commissioner Linda Williams stated, "We will never give up hope," while mentioning further lines of inquiry, keeping things vague and non-committal. Rumors about the family's military past have circulated, potentially influencing how police approach the case, with a hands-off attitude toward digging deep into the household. Vincent Murray, Shannon's father, and a World War II hero who ran the ranch for decades, represented that authoritative structure, and his death in 2015 paved the way for Josie's transition. Whispers suggest this military background, Vincent as a hero, might make police hesitant or deferential, avoiding intense scrutiny of the family, though there's no direct evidence in reports. Just speculation from online discussions about the patriarchal dynamic and the idea of them being a law unto themselves. Josie's firearms haven't been checked in connection to the case, adding to the talk. As for investigation directions and theories, the official line holds that Gus wandered off and got lost, with no foul play indicated, emphasizing the exhaustive searches and confidence they've done everything possible. Private investigator Ken Gamble, speaking as recently as November 20, pointed to a lack of evidence that Gus ever left the homestead or walked away. If not found in a 5K numbers grid search, it's evidence he probably hasn't wandered off. Possibly removed by someone, he suggested underestimated distances, that Gus might have sought shelter in overlooked spots, and alternative theories if widening the search yields nothing. Experts on November 20 outlined three main options: runaway, lost, or accident, or third-party intervention, with a former homicide detective offering a chilling theory and indigenous trackers weighing in on possibilities. Retired Detective Charlie Bazina extended condolences to the family while expressing confidence police have covered all bases, noting the investigation remains significant and open. Wilder theories floating around include an earlier disappearance to explain the evidence void, an accident involving a vehicle or sheep, rams can be dangerous, a cover-up, outright foul play, or kidnapping. Some ruled out like fake images from October 14. There's talk of a link to a missing man named Benjamin on the same day, sparking sinister fears, though it might be coincidence, and AI-generated images went viral but were debunked as fake. Community tensions are rising with sightings of the reclusive family, as discussed in a podcast on November 20, and the case draws comparisons to Australia's unsolved mysteries, like the Beaumont children, Joanne Ratcliffe, and Kirst Gordon. The timeline of Benjamin. Another factor that makes the Gus Lamont case currently very complex and controversial is that it occurred simultaneously with another case, and both cases have connections between events and locations, leading to opinions that they are truly related to each other. So what is the specific issue? The disappearance of Benjamin, a man in his 40s with no full last name publicly disclosed, unfolded in the same remote outback region of South Australia. Before September 26, 2025, details on Benjamin remain scarce. We have no specific history laid out in reports, no mentions of his family background, his occupation, or what brought him to the harsh outback of South Australia. At around 40 years old, he's described in some accounts as a wild-eyed man, a phrase that pops up in media like the Daily Mail, but it lacks context, leaving a blank slate on any personal issues, mental health concerns, or reasons for his travel. Then, on the afternoon of September 26, 2025, around 5:00 p.m., Benjamin was last seen driving erratically on the Stuart Highway between Glendambo and Pimba, south of Glendambo. This stretch of road, desolate and flanked by endless scrub, is about a 2-hour drive from Oak Park Station, where Gus lived with his family. Truck drivers reported concerns about his swerving and unpredictable maneuvers, flagging it as dangerous behavior that could indicate distress impairment or something more sinister. Benjamin was behind the wheel of a 2006 Hyundai Getz with Western Australia plates reading, a detail police later emphasized in appeals for dashcam footage. We note how this timing, late afternoon, sets the stage for what followed, with no further sightings after that erratic drive, as if the outback swallowed him whole right as the sun dipped low. The next day, September 27, 2025, marks a pivotal shift. Benjamin's car was discovered abandoned and hidden in thick bush about 10 kilometers off the Stuart Highway at Wirramina. Footprints believed to be his led deeper into the scrub, but no other vehicle tracks or additional footprints were found nearby, suggesting he ventured out alone on foot into the wilderness. This discovery happened on the very same day Gus was last seen playing on that dirt mound at 5:00 p.m. and reported missing by 5:30 p.m., creating an eerie overlap that locals couldn't ignore. Police inspected the vehicle but released few details on what, if anything, was inside. No personal items mentioned, no signs of struggle noted publicly, just the car tucked away as if deliberately concealed. From here, the case transitioned into active search mode, with authorities treating it as a missing person in perilous terrain. After September 27, 2025, South Australian police mounted a broad search for Benjamin, deploying state emergency service volunteers, drones for aerial scans, and local trackers who knew the land's tricks. Efforts covered the bush around Wirramina, focusing on where his footprints trailed off, but the operation scaled back over time as leads dried up. Police kept appealing to the public for information, specifically requesting dashcam footage from the Stewart Highway between Port Augusta and Glendembo on the afternoon of September 26, and urging truck drivers who had reported his erratic driving to come forward with more details. Unlike Gus's search, which involved massive resources like 48 Australian Defence Force members and became one of SA Police's largest ever, Benjamin's hunt stayed more contained, with no joint operations mentioned between the two cases. We observe how this post-discovery phase dragged on without breakthroughs, mirroring the frustration in Gus's investigation where exhaustive grids yielded nothing. A week or so later, on the Saturday following September 27, likely late September or early October 2025, police renewed their appeal for information on Benjamin, a move that stirred public anger because it coincided with the scaling back of Gus's search efforts. Online comments flooded in, things like "Where is Gus?" and criticisms accusing authorities of prioritizing an adult over a child, highlighting the tension between the two parallel mysteries. This renewal kept Benjamin's case in the spotlight briefly, but it didn't produce new leads, leaving the public to stew on the timing. As of November 21, 2025, Benjamin remains missing, with no specific new developments reported in recent weeks. Police state they're not aware of or investigating any connection to Gus, but online rumors persist, fueled by the lack of updates on Benjamin's full identity, family, or purpose in the area. This ongoing status quo, 2 months without resolution, echoes Gus's unresolved fate, keeping both cases open but stagnant in the public eye. When we line up Benjamin's timeline against Gus Lamont's, the overlaps jump out immediately. The time proximity is striking. Benjamin disappeared in the afternoon of September 26, 2025, and his car was found on September 27, the exact day Gus was last seen at 5:00 p.m. and reported missing by 5:30 p.m. at Oak Park Station. This one-day gap, with discoveries aligning on the 27th, creates a window where theories of intersection thrive. Geographically, they're close too. Benjamin's last sighting on the Stewart Highway between Glendambo and Pimba is roughly 2 hours' drive from Gus's family ranch, and his abandoned car at Wirramina sits in similar harsh outback territory, the kind of place where paths could cross unnoticed. Searches ran parallel, both involved SCS volunteers, drones, and trackers, with Benjamin's effort winding down as Gus's ramped up, but the renewed appeal for Benjamin happened right when Gus's ground search scaled back, sparking public confusion and anger over resource allocation. Media and public reactions gripped the nation for both. Yet the Benjamin appeal drew criticism for seeming to overshadow the child case, with online comments questioning priorities. Police maintain no evidence links them and aren't pursuing a connection. But the coincidence in dates and locations has locals and forums buzzing with questions about whether one influenced the other. These alignments feed into various theories tying Gus's case to Benjamin. One prominent idea is that Benjamin abducted Gus. Driven by sinister fears, his erratic driving on September 26 could signal an unstable mental state, and his car abandonment on the 27th matches Gus's vanishing window, leading locals to speculate third-party intervention like kidnapping. But with no concrete evidence, police have ruled out any connection, treating them as separate. Another view sees it as pure coincidence. Two independent incidents in the vast SA outback, where Benjamin might have simply gotten lost, unrelated to Gus's situation, and authorities confirm no link while focusing on standalone probes. Some posit Benjamin as a witness or linked victim. He could have spotted Gus wandering or been involved in a shared misadventure, perhaps with humans or wildlife, but his own disappearance phony testimony, former detective Gary Jubilin advised exploring all possibilities, including third-party actions or animal attacks, which could apply if their paths crossed. Fake images and online rumors amplify this. Viral fake showing Gus pushed into a car by an unfamiliar man hint at abduction tied to Benjamin, but police confirmed them as bogus, with AA fact-checking the misinformation. Discussions online hyped the coincidence in timing and proximity, though without proof. Finally, the renewed search for Gus might stem from worries about this link, with police boosting efforts due to those sinister fears, even if officially denied. Ex-police officer Aaron Stewart recommended re-interviewing ranch folks, backtracking a week, and using foot trackers, which could uncover overlaps if Benjamin factored in. To expand on these points, consider how Benjamin's erratic drive on the 26th sets a tone of unpredictability. We have truckers noting his swerving, perhaps signaling distress or intent, and then the car hidden off-road the next day, footprints vanning into scrub without other traces, painting a picture of deliberate isolation. In Gus's world, that same September 27 sees him playing unsupervised, gone in 30 minutes, with family searching alone for hours before alerting police, a delay that parallels the time Benjamin's vehicle sat undiscovered. The geographic tie isn't just distance. Wirramina's bush is akin to Oak Park's terrain, full of saltbush and deadly brown snakes, where someone could hide or get lost easily, and both searches faced weather was, high winds and heat hampering efforts, as seen in Gus's lace resumption where teams dealt with 50 km gusts and 34°C temps, vehicles stuck in mud, and snake warnings. Public backlash to Benjamin's appeal highlights the emotional pull a child versus an adult, with comments decrying the shift, yet it underscores how the cases bleed into each other in perception. Theories gain traction from these syncs. The abduction angle imagines Benjamin, unstable from his drive, stumbling upon Gus, maybe spotting the boy near the highway or ranch edges, leading to an impulsive act, his car abandonment as cover. But police dismiss it, no evidence like shared footprints or witnesses. Coincidence theory holds weight in the outback's vastness. Where disappearances happen independently, Benjamin's solo tracks suggest personal crisis, not involvement with a child. As a potential witness, he might have seen something, Gus wandering far, or family activity, but his fate silences him, aligning with Jubilin's call to probe misadventures involving people or animals, like dingoes or vehicles. Fakes fuel fire. Those viral images of Gus in a stranger's grasp evoke Benjamin's wild-eyed description, but debunked as AI-generated hoaxes, with ape checks quelling spread. Yet forums amplify, tying erratic behavior to foul play. Enhanced Gus searches, with Task Force Horizon formed, might quietly stem from these fears. Stewart's advice to backtrack and walk grids could reveal if Benjamin's path crossed the station, urging deeper looks at timelines. A whole new possibility. As we piece together the timeline of the Gus Lamont case, one striking point emerges right away: the number of people truly missing in this mystery might be more than just the official count. Only Gus Lamont, the 4-year-old boy, has been formally reported as missing since that Saturday afternoon on September 27, 2025, when he vanished from the dirt mound outside the homestead at Oak Park Station. But Jessica Murray, Gus's mother, and her 1-year-old son Ronnie have effectively dropped off the map too, with no confirmed sightings since Gus's disappearance, and their whereabouts remaining unclear in all reports. There's no official missing persons alert for them, no police filings or public pleas from the family about their absence, but media outlets and online speculations treat them as absent from public view, almost like secondary vanishings tied to the main event. This expands the scope beyond a single child lost in the outback, turning it into a family-wide enigma where 3 individuals, Gus, Jessica, and Ronnie, seem to have faded from sight without explanation. We note how this absence fuels questions about what really happened that day, especially since Jessica was out tending sheep, with Josie 10 kilometers away when Gus went missing, leaving Shannon as the sole witness at home with Ronnie. Jessica's lack of public appearances only heightens this intrigue. She hasn't shown up directly in front of the public once since September 2025, no interviews, no emotional appeals on camera begging for tips about her son, no sightings at search sites or community gatherings. All information about her filters through third-party reports or representatives, like the family's sole statement delivered via a friend in early October. We're devastated by the disappearance of our beloved Gus on Saturday afternoon. That's it, no personal words from Jessica, no face attached to the grief. Media sources such as Daily Mail and 7EWS have repeatedly emphasized this absence as suspicious, pointing out how unusual it is for a mother in a high-profile missing child case to stay completely silent and invisible. In standard investigations, parents often become the public face, sharing stories or photos to keep the search alive, but here Jessica remains a ghost in the narrative, her quiet, shy, highly intelligent, and high-achieving nature perhaps explaining some reticence, though not the total blackout. This pattern leads us to consider deeper implications, where her non-appearance isn't just withdrawal but part of a larger story. From there, we arrive at assumptions about Jessica potentially fleeing with Ronnie, or even Gus, escaping the controlling dynamics at the Murray-Lamont homestead where Josie rules the roost with an iron fist. One direction suggests she left with both Gus and Ronnie before the reported incident, which would account for Gus barely leaving home in the 6 months prior and no sightings of him outside the immediate family circle. Perhaps they were already gone, and the September 27 report was a cover for an earlier departure. This fits with the family's seclusion, where only those who later reported him missing claim to have seen him alive during that period, and it explains the disrupted nursery school plans set for full-time in January 2026 after his March 2025 trial day. Alternatively, she might have fled after Gus went missing, driven by grief, trauma, or something to cover, leading to her reluctance to participate in searches or public efforts. In this scenario, Jessica could have taken Ronnie and vanished post-event, avoiding the spotlight and perhaps seeking refuge elsewhere, like with extended family in Bellely North, though no confirmations exist. Either way, her complete silence and absence point toward a deliberate removal from the situation, raising about what she might know or fear within the family structure. The official time of Gus's disappearance, last seen at 5:00 p.m. on September 27, 2025 playing on the dirt mound, and missing by 5:30 p.m. when Shannon called him for dinner, comes under scrutiny when layered with earlier gaps. Gus wasn't seen by anyone outside the family for 6 months before that, dating back to his nursery trial in March 2025, with only family members claiming he was alive and present during that isolation. This long stretch of no public sightings fuels doubts about the exact moment he vanished, suggesting it could have happened much earlier, which would explain the utter lack of evidence like footprints, clothing, or his hat found despite massive searches. If Gus had already left the area with Jessica beforehand, it aligns with why no traces turned up. The disappearance narrative on September 27 might have been staged or delayed to fit a plan. Tying into that, Gus's disrupted schooling stands out as another clue. He was set for full-time nursery in January 2026, after that March 2025 trial day, the last time anyone beyond immediate family remembers seeing him, captured in the police photo of him in his gray and blue Peppa Pig t-shirt. But those plans never materialized, hinting at an interruption that could stem from him already having left the region with his mother Jessa prior to the reported date. This assumption connects to the 6-month isolation, where residents in Yunta knew Jessica had 2 children but couldn't recall seeing Gus since he was a baby, and the family's provision of just one old photo for the search, similar to tactics in other cases that complicate identification. If Jessica orchestrated a departure with the kids to escape the homestead's tensions, the school dropout becomes a deliberate step to avoid drawing attention. The reporting date coinciding with the AFL Grand Final on September 27, 2025, adds a calculated edge to the timeline. This major sports event distracted millions across Australia, potentially reducing immediate public attention and allowing a slower reaction from authorities or media. Assumptions here lean toward intentional timing. Choosing that day to report Gus missing could minimize scrutiny, giving time for a cover-up or escape, especially if the family knew the nation would be glued to screens rather than news alerts about a rural child. The 3-hour delay in calling police after 5:30 p.m., including searches in darkness after sunset at 6:15 p.m., fits this pattern, as does Gus not responding to calls, suggesting the window was used strategically. Not notifying Joshua Lamont promptly raises more red flags. Jessica didn't call her partner right away. He learned from police hours later while renovating a house in Bellely North, 2 hours away. This omission could mean Joshua knew something that might disrupt a plan if he arrived early, perhaps details about family conflicts or an escape scheme. His renovation efforts for a family reunion bolster assumptions that Jessica fled there with the children, seeking a fresh start away from Josie's control. 2 possibilities emerge for Joshua's role. First, he genuinely doesn't know the whereabouts of Jessica, Ronnie, and possibly Gus, leading to his visible strain, anger, and heartbroken state, with friends conducting welfare checks on his mental health. Second, he's covering for them, shielding their location, and his recent angry reaction to Daily Mail reporters around November 2025, aimed at chasing media away from his area, mirrors Josie's shotgun incident with reporters on October 30, 2025, where she shouted, "Get out! Shut your face!" while Shannon intervened. In this view, Joshua's outburst serves the same purpose, deflecting attention to protect a hidden family. These points weave into a broader analysis of the timeline's oddities, starting from the patriarchal roots pre-2015 with Vincent Murray Fanch Management, through Josie's 2015 transition and inheritance questions, to Gus's 2021 birth sparking generational rifts. By 2023-2024, Joshua's banishment set the stage for fractured dynamics, culminating in the March 2025 nursery sighting as Gus's last non-family confirmation. The 6-month isolation that followed, ending with the September 27 report amid the AFL distraction, aligns with theories of an earlier exit orchestrated by Jessica to break free. Benjamin's overlapping disappearance, erratic drive onto 26 and car found on September 27, adds external coincidence, but the family's internal silences, like no direct appeals and Jessica's total absence, point inward. The search phases from late September to November 2025, with ramps-ups after footprints, dam drainings yielding nothing, and transfers to major crime, highlight evidence voids that support pre-planned departures. Joshua's November 15 video breaking silence without new info, and his non-return to the homestead, reinforce cover possibilities, whether he's in the dark or actively shielding. We trace how the family's statement through a friend in October avoids personal exposure, fitting Jessica's shy profile but clashing with typical parental urgency. The shotgun confrontation on October 30, just before a search resumption, shows defensive postures that could mask escapes, while police's sparse updates, ruling out theories without details, leave room for these assumptions. The nursery disruption ties back to isolation, suggesting Gus was already relocated with Jessica, explaining no disturbances on the dirt mound and zero traces post 5:30 p.m. The AFL timing as a diversion allows hypothetical planning time, perhaps for Jessica to settle elsewhere with the kids, with Joshua's house prep as a destination. His anger toward media echoes Josie's, potentially a coordinated deflection if he's hiding them, or genuine frustration if unaware. Earlier vanishings would account for the lack of footprints or items, as P.I. Ken Gamble noted on November 20, emphasizing no evidence Gus walked away. These elements, from family bans to silent absences, build a narrative where the official timeline masks a family fracture, with Jessica's flight pre- or post-event as a core thread. The hope. Until now, Gus is still missing nearly 2 months after his disappearance on September 27, 2025, with no fresh traces or specific developments emerging in recent weeks. The investigation has shifted to long-term missing persons status under the Missing Persons Investigation section of South Australia Police. But the involvement of the Major Crime Investigation Branch suggests a quiet consideration of foul play possibilities. Even as officials publicly state there's no evidence pointing that way and all angles are being explored. The family continues to cooperate fully according to police statements, but their public silence persists, with no new appeals or interviews from key members like Jessica or Josie. Media coverage rolls on, with articles such as the Daily Mail piece from November 20, 2025, emphasizing the absolute lack of evidence that Gus had left the homestead on his own. Online discussions and podcasts, including a November 21, 2025, episode diving into the Outback Enigma. Keep comparing it to South Australia's unsolved cases like the Beaumont children, stirring debates about whether this will join that infamous list. Community tensions are rising, with unconfirmed sightings of the reclusive family reported in local chatter, though nothing verified, and private investigator Ken Gamble's comments on November 20, 2025, underline zero evidence Gus was on the property after vanishing or walked away, hinting he might have been removed by someone. Survival odds remain low given his age, the elapsed time, and the harsh outback terrain, as an expert noted on November 6, 2025, while a local volunteer described the case as defying logic, due to no clues despite the intensive searches that covered vast areas. Recent search efforts show some momentum, with operations resuming on October 31, 2025, following the draining of 3.2 million liters from the dam near the homestead, which turned up no traces despite the thorough process. Commissioner Grant Stevens indicated on November 5, 2025, a possible fourth search at the isolated property, focusing on enhancements identified in 2 reviews of prior efforts. Those reviews found no criticism, but pinpointed opportunities like grid patterns or technology use. Task Force Horizon has been formed specifically to zero in on Gus, deploying 80 Australian Defence Force personnel in the latest pushes, marking a dedicated shift to keep the case active. Weather has posed challenges, with winds up to 50 km and temperatures over 30-40 C, halting midday searches, vehicles getting stuck in the mud, and warnings about brown snakes lurking in the saltbush around Oak Park Station. Renewed appeals for information continue, including requests for dashcam footage that might capture overlooked details from the area. Police emphasize it's far from over, with Deputy Commissioner Linda Williams stating, "We will never give up hope," and mentioning further lines of inquiry without specifics. There's still opportunity here, given the outback's vastness. Gamble suggests possible missed shelters or underestimated distances a determined child might cover, while experts recommend re-interviewing people at the ranch, backtracking 1 week, and using foot trackers for finer detail. The chance of finding Gus alive is low but not zero, per a survival expert on November 6, 2025, and public support lingers, as seen in Facebook posts from November 7, 2025, sending hearts to the family amid the ongoing wait. Hints of a silent investigation into Gus's relatives add layers to the current phase. Police made a quiet shift to the Major Crime Branch on October 8, 2025, which could indicate a deeper probe into the family without fanfare or public comments, focusing on possibilities beyond a simple wander-off. Gamble's November 20, 2025. Implications point to alternative theories if no evidence supports wandering, like the boy being removed by someone, potentially a family member, given the evidentiary void. Former Detective Gary Jubilin has suggested exploring misadventures or third-party interventions, including human involvement that might tie back to those close to Gus. Retired Detective Charlie Bezina expressed confidence police have done everything possible, but noted the investigation remains open, leaving room for behind-the-scenes work. Aaron Stewart recommended silent re-interviews of those on the ranch, a tactic that could uncover inconsistencies without alerting subjects. The family's full cooperation is stated, but their silence, no public appeals, Jessica's complete absence, raises suspicions that something's being held back. Josie's shotgun incident on October 30, 2025, where she confronted reporters aggressively, waving the weapon and shouting demands to leave, comes across as obstructive, especially with Shannon intervening but no charges filed. Joshua's banned from the homestead due to his clash with Josie, and his anger toward media in November 2025, suggest internal secrets that might be probing discreetly. Online speculations swirl about cover-ups or earlier disappearances, with the family's patriarchal dynamic and law unto themselves vibe making them a focal point for quiet scrutiny. There's no direct evidence of foul play, but the absence of evidence is treated as evidence in discussions, and police refute misinformation without detailing family interviews or forensic checks at the home, hinting at an under-the-radar approach. Looking ahead, we predict the case could see a widening of search areas beyond the initial 5 km radius if authorities follow Gamble's advice, potentially resuming a fourth search once weather improves to avoid the wind and heat issues that plagued recent efforts. Deeper family probes seem likely, with re-interviews of Shannon as the last witness and Josie, perhaps checking call records from September 27, 2025, or examining vehicles inside and out for any overlooked clues, as suggested in expert inputs. The Benjamin link might get explored further, being officially ruled out, given the timing coincidence of his car abandonment on the same day as Gus's disappearance, which could prompt joint reviews if new tips surface. More expert involvement is expected, like indigenous trackers revisiting key spots or survival specialists assessing missed shelters. If progress stalls, public appeals could ramp up, possibly pressuring the family to break their silence with direct statements or appearances. Media pressure might lead to new tips filtering in or more misinformation needing debunking, keeping the spotlight intense. Long-term, if unsolved, it adds to South Australia's mysteries like the Beaumont children, with fading hope but persistent scrutiny. Possible closure could come if remains are found or evidence points to an accident or cover-up, though police maintain hope despite low survival odds. Community tensions might escalate, fueling more online theories, and potential podcast or documentary coverage could deepen the inquiry, drawing in fresh perspectives or whistleblowers. As we wrap up our analysis of the Gus Lamont case on the channel, our thoughts turn to Gus himself, the 4-year-old boy at the heart of this mystery. We pray for Gus Lamont, hoping against the odds that he's safe somewhere, perhaps cared for in ways we can't yet understand. Despite the low survival chances given his age and the harsh outback conditions, we hold on to positive possibilities, that a missed clue could lead to his recovery, or that he's out there waiting for the right tip to bring him home. The searches continue, and with each resumed effort like the recent ones under Task Force Horizon, there's still a chance for a breakthrough. We send our hopes to the family enduring this nightmare, wishing for answers that bring peace and closure. That said, we must confirm the case remains open and unresolved as of November 21, 2025, with no official suspects named and no evidence pointing to foul play, as police have repeatedly stated. All possibilities are being explored, but nothing has been concluded. Any assumptions we've discussed here about timelines, family dynamics, or potential links to other disappearances like Benjamin's are just personal opinions based on available reports. We base them on facts from sources like Daily Mail and 7EWS, but they stay as viewpoints, not accusations. Out of respect for those involved, the Lamont and Murray family, who are cooperating fully amid their grief, we keep our comments measured and acknowledge the strain they're under. No one deserves judgment without proof, and we honor their privacy in this difficult time. This breakdown ends here for today, but the mysteries linger, unexplained silences, evidence gaps and overlapping timelines that keep us questioning. Most importantly, Gus Lamont hasn't been found, and that's the core fact driving everything. We'll keep tracking updates and dive deeper in future videos as new details emerge. Thanks for watching, stay tuned.